Scientists don't respond to declarations. They respond to evidence. So one of the books I want to refer you to tonight is a book called Signature in the Cell. And the naming of that book is not by mistake. Remember what the SETI thing said? They're looking for some signature in this technology. And this man is arguing there's the signature right here under your face in every living cell. And it's DNA. That is the signature. And it is more powerful than any signature ever received from outer space. And it's right here. We can test it and repeat it and do things with it all the time. And it's full of information, which I want to share with you a little bit. Some of it will come from this book. So here's what we're going to do tonight, class, for the rest of our time. I'm going to present evidence, like in a court case. You're going to be the jury and the judge. And the question will be, which is the better explanation for what I'm going to present to you tonight? Is it natural causes? Or is it intelligent design? Which is more reasonable? And that's about the best you can do with science. Which is more reasonable? Science does not deal with absolute truth. Which is more reasonable? But that's what I'm going to ask you to do. With the evidence we'll have time to present. So here we go. The second book I want to present to you is a little book written by Francis Crick. Remember who that is? Co-discoverer of the structure of DNA. Won the Nobel Prize in 1953 with James Watson. If there's anybody that knows what life itself is like, it's Francis Crick. Now he's passed on. But he wrote this book some years ago. He says life itself, its origin and nature. So, can you open that for me to page, should be one mark right there. I need to get my glasses on. There it is. Thank you. I'm going to read from his book. Everybody listening?
Yes, sir.
Life as we know it on Earth appears as a synthesis of two macromolecular systems. That's a lot of big words. Two, what does macro mean? Huge. Macromolecular means large molecules. Life, every kind of life we know about, has two types of systems. The proteins, because of their versatility and chemical reactivity, do all the work, but are unable to reproduce themselves in any simple way. The nucleic acids, the DNA and the RNA, are the ones that can reproduce themselves. And every living thing we know about has to have both. And his argument is, the problem of the origin of life would be a great deal easier to approach if there were only one family of macromolecules. But every kind of life we know about has to have both. Proteins and nucleic acids. Period. All right? Something else he said in here, I'll get to it just a moment. I want to be sure you know he said it. So here they are. What is life made of? Well, they're structural materials. Those are proteins. And they form the shape and mobility of living things. But that's not all. There are also tools and machinery in living things. And they are enzymes. Those are special forms of proteins. And they do the metabolism, the growth and maintenance of living things. Do you notice that both of those first two groups are proteins? Say it for me. They are proteins. That's one of those great classes in every living thing. In addition to that, there are blueprints, which we call the nucleic acids. We call them DNA and RNA. And what are they? They're for reproduction. They contain information that allows you to reproduce. Proteins don't do that. Listen to me closely, class. This is the third really important thing I'm saying tonight. You can't have reproduction by the nucleic acids without proteins. And you can't have proteins without the nucleic acids with the information in it. It's like love and marriage and a horse and carriage. They go together. You don't have them both, you got no marriage. Very important. Now that's the way life is. And I love it when people say, yeah, the life as we know it. People, we don't know any other life than what's here. I would say the only life anybody knows anything about. They can theorize about other life forms out there in outer space. In fact, that's what they do in contact. They sit around talking about, well, what about these other life forms? Nobody knows any other life forms. It's just a bunch of stories. So there are two types of proteins. They are the workhorses of living things. They're structural and they're enzymes. I told you that. And I know you're listening so closely because you could have answered that on a quiz. Now I'm going to spend just a few minutes on proteins. They deserve 6 months. And if you were in my chemistry class, the second day of class in biochemistry, you would be learning this. Because every protein and every living thing is made up of those 20 common amino acids. Did you know that? Yes. Single-celled organisms, little bacteria that swim around in the water, their proteins are made of this. Your proteins are made of this and everything in between. You know what an evolutionist does with that? He said that just means we're all kin to each other by common descent. It's because we all have the same chemistry. I'll tell you what I do. It looks like design to me. That a great designer designed a common chemistry so we could all feed on each other. But look, and I need a pointer here, so I'm going to have to use this thing. Let's go through these, will you? Just briefly. All right. Where's the pointer? There it is. Glycine, alanine, valine, leucine, isoleucine, proline, serine. Do you notice most of them end in I-N-E? Yep. Tryptophan doesn't. Most of them do. Cysteine ends in I-N-E. Here's something else you need to notice. Do you see that every one of them has a little NH3 group somewhere? Mm-hmm. See that? That's called an amine group. Okay. That's why they're called amino acids. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, do you notice that everyone has a little COO group? Co. Yeah. Coo. If you look at every one, they've got a coo on it. That's the organic acid. Okay. So they are an amino acid. Okay. But do you also know that everyone's a little different from the other? And there's 20 of them. Mm-hmm. And you need all 20, class, to build proteins. That's why you hear nutritionists telling you get your amino acids. Make sure you have a good distribution of amino acids so your body can build protein. Mm-hmm. Now your body makes some of these, mm-hmm. others it doesn't, so you have to ingest them. Yep. Okay? Mm-hmm. What's amazing though is this. Every protein in every living thing is a combination of these 20. They string them out in a row. So you may have a glycine followed by a leucine, followed by methionine, followed by a tyrosine in a sequence, in a long chain. And that chain of amino acids is a what, class? Protein. Now I'm going to give you a hint. For the next few minutes, every answer I want you to give is protein, okay? So you don't have to worry. Now I may slip up and ask you a wrong question, but most every question the answer is protein. So a string of amino acids is a protein. Exactly right. And all proteins and all living things are made up of those 20 in some sequence. It's very much like in our English language, the 26 letters of the alphabet are what our words are made of. Yep. Every word in English comes from those 26 in some sequence, right? It's exactly the same thing. So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what we've learned is that in every cell, the proteins themselves are made up of a string of amino acids that are really like an alphabet. And their properties are based on what's in that string. Just like in English, the definition of the word is based on that string, isn't it? It is. All right. That's fascinating to me. Now, proteins deserve a whole lot more than what I just said. But I want to talk tonight about the signature in the cell, and that's the DNA. So, the DNA and the RNA, Dr. Crick says in that book, are the dumb blondes of the molecular world. I didn't say that. So be sure you understand. He goes on to say, fit mainly for reproduction, but not much else. I'm sorry, blondes. But in my experience, talking about this, that's the one thing people remember. Sometimes a joke helps you remember. DNA and RNA provide reproduction. Proteins do all the work, but you got to have them both. All right. So here's what we learned about DNA in brief. It has a certain characteristic structure. It's a double helix with crossbars, and because of that, it has the capacity to reproduce itself. So notice, I know it's a little hard to see up there, but can you see that there is a strand like this one? You see how it wraps around here? And then here's another one, and they wrap around each other. And then there are cross pieces that connect them together. And that's the structure that Crick and Watson were given credit for discovering. And because of that structure, we know now how that allows them to reproduce and to build proteins. It's amazing. And what amazes me is people teach chemistry about this stuff and like, isn't it wonderful what we've learned? Instead of, isn't it amazing nature does this? How does nature do this? I say, class, somebody designed this.
Yeah.
So what happens in DNA transcription? First of all, the DNA unzips. Can you see it unzipping up there? It exposes both sides, really. And then it has a particular order of 4 molecules, H, C, G, and T. Adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. Those are the 4 key molecules that are on those side chains. And they hook up. Any of you know which one goes with which? A always goes with G, and C always goes with T. That's the way it works. And if you were in my chemistry class, you would learn the chemistry as to why they can hook up and the others can't. Looks like a plan to me. But it is the truth. Those molecules can join chemically, and the others can't. And so they do. In addition to that, these can be read in a sequence. You read them up. You go up that chain. Can you see the different colors? There's 4 different colors. Blue, purple, yellow, and green, right? Those stand for those 4 different molecules. Now, they're not green, purple, and yellow in real life. That's for the picture.
Yes.
But it does show you there's a sequence. So you can read up that chain, and you can read adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine, adenine, and so on. And did you know, class, that by now we have done that for almost every protein there is? You can go to a library and you can check out the atlas of human and animal proteins.
Wow.
And you can sit there and read the amino acids. It's the most boring reading. Just line after line of amino acids in the exact sequence they occur in that particular protein. It's all mapped out. And what do you think, class, if you remove one of those amino acids and put it in a different place? What do you think?
It won't work.
It doesn't work. Problem. Every 3 letters in that sequence forms a word. I'm pausing.
Protein.
In the DNA molecule that you're watching right here, when you read up that chain, every 3 of those forms a word. And that word class has a very specific meaning I'm going to show you. And there are 4 types of molecules. Remember, adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine? There's 4. And they're used 3 at a time to make words. So in this amazing language, you have 4 letters, not 26 like we do in English. And you make only 3-letter words. Kids, that'd be a pretty easy language to learn with. You'd have only cat and dog and bee and. But it's still an amazing language. And there's the entire language, summarized on one chart. That is called the genetic code. Because we now know what 3 letters in a row mean in every single instance. So I'm going to go up here. C, A, G, and that's U here. When you make RNA, the T becomes a U. I'm not talking about that tonight. But that's U is replacing the T. So here's the first letter, here's the second letter, and here's the third letter in the 3-letter words. So look up here with me, class. Don't miss out on this. I'm teaching you how to read. Okay? All right. U, U, U. That's 3 letters, right?
Okay.
That's this little thing right here.
Okay.
U is a 3-letter word in DNA.